Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the CHAARAT Gold Holdings Limited annual results investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time via the Q&A tab that's just situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Please simply type in your questions at any time and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company will review all of the questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate to do so. Before we begin, I would like to submit the following poll, and if you'd give that your kind attention, I'm sure the company will be most grateful. And I'd now like to hand you over to CEO Mike Fraser. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Jake. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the presentation of CHAARAT Gold Holdings FY21 results. My name is Mike Fraser, and I'm the CEO of CHAARAT and joined the company in January of this year. Today, I'm joined by members of the CHAARAT management team, our Chief Operating Officer, Darren Cooper, and our Interim Chief Financial Officer, David McKenzie. The format of today's session is that I will provide a brief summary of the 2021 results. Darren will then provide a deeper overview of the operational performance, and Dave will provide further depth to our financial performance over the past year. Following the presentation, there will then be an opportunity to ask questions of us via the web platform. I just draw your attention to the disclaimer, and for those that have got the presentation, I challenge you to just read that in your own time. Just going into the overview, and firstly to start, and on behalf of the board and the entire team at CHAARAT, I'm pleased to report an improved set of results for FY21. I would also like at the outset to thank the CHAARAT team in their efforts to advance the strategy of CHAARAT during the year. I chose to join CHAARAT based on the potential of the company to grow into a quality mid-tier miner. Since I've joined, I've been reviewing the current assets and projects to validate our strategy. And following this review, the pathway to value in the near term is very clear to me. Firstly, we need to progress our internal growth options in Kyrgyzstan, and in particular, complete financing of Tulkubash and progressing the Kiziltash project. We must also ensure that we continue to run Kapan reliably and continue to optimize the resource for value. In reviewing the strategy, we will consider two small pivots in the strategy if the pathway to value is clear. Firstly, we will consider projects outside of the FSU geography if attractive options present themselves. And secondly, we will also consider other base metals projects given our experience and capabilities at Kapan. There's a very strong technical base in the company, and I'm very comfortable that this team has the capability to operate through the value chain, and there's significant diverse geographical experience to support these pivots if the opportunity presents themselves. Specifically with regards to Tulkubash, the resolution of the Kumtor dispute between the Kyrgyz Republic and Centerra that was announced on Monday, the 4th of April, has provided the opening to re-engage with financing partners. We are targeting completion of funding for Tulkubash in the second half of 2022. Turning to the war in Ukraine, at this stage, the conflict has had no direct impact on our operations, and we do not expect a material impact during the remainder of 2022. However, we continue to monitor the situation very closely to understand the potential impacts on supply chain, costs and commodity prices. And we are seeing inflation across the basket of input costs, and we are not immune to these cost impacts as the rest of the industry is. Our teams are, however, working hard to mitigate against these impacts. Turning to our sustainability performance, we are committed to creating a safe and healthy workplace where everyone goes home safe and well at the end of every shift. Tragically, in March 2021, a contractor employee was fatally injured at our Kapan mine. A detailed investigation was undertaken to ensure we learn from this incident, and work is underway group-wide to reassess operational and material risk exposures to ensure risks are well understood and controls are in place to mitigate these exposures. We currently operate one significant tailings facility, the Gegunush Tailings Dam at Kapan. During the year, further investments were made as part of a multi-year strategy to improve the seismic stability of this facility. Finally, we are progressing work to reduce our carbon footprint through electrification and improved energy efficiency projects, and we will continue to evaluate opportunities to reduce our carbon position. With regards to our financial performance, revenue was up 22% in 21 compared to 2020, reflecting higher commodity prices and increased third-party ore processing. Group EBITDA was also up 45% in 2021, reflecting the improved performance in Kapan, and that translates to an improved cash position in the year, which closed at $11.1 million at year-end. And consequently, net debt also decreased by 49% to $39.6 million. Briefly looking at the operational and project highlights, at Kapan, production was at 63,000 ounces gold equivalent, up 10% compared to 2020, partly due to strong third-party treatment. EBITDA was up 17% to $22.7 million. All-in sustaining costs of $1,205 per ounce was up 17% due to more selective mining as we pursue our strategy at Kapan to maximize value from the ore body, and also due to inflationary impacts. Increasing third-party ore feed where value accretive is a key objective to fill the mill capacity at Kapan, and third-party ore feed increased from 55,000 tons in 2020 to 145,000 tons in 2021, contributing $3.7 million EBITDA in the period. In addition, the East Flank development project adjacent to Kapan mine is progressing according to plan. A trade-off study will be undertaken in due course to determine whether to add this to reserve or provide additional own production tons in the near term. In Kyrgyzstan, the updated Tulkubash bankable feasibility study was released in May 2021, confirming strong economics. A 4,835 meter drilling program was completed, including additional infill drilling and initial drilling in target extension zones for Tulkubash resource. At Kiziltash deposit, we completed a 3,508 meter drilling program in order to obtain representative core samples, which are now with SGS Lakefields in Canada for metallurgical testing. And this will provide guidance on our best processing route for the project. And this is a key step in the project study phase. In order to close the section, our objective is very clear. It's to create a leading emerging markets gold company. We currently have 800,000 ounces of gold equivalent P&P reserves and 8 million ounces of MI and inferred resources with a strong internal growth pipeline. Kapan continues to form the base of our production profile with production target of 56 to 62,000 ounces in 2022. And by 2025, we expect to have added Tulkubash Phase 1, adding additional 95 to 100,000 ounces to the production profile. And by 2027, with the addition of Tulkubash Phase 2 and Kiziltash, would have a 450,000 ounce production profile at a target all-in sustaining cost of sub $900 per ounce. We will continue to explore M&A opportunities for value. And whilst mergers and acquisitions is not a strategy in its own right, I do believe that the sector remains overdue for further consolidation. We will continue to prioritize the development of our own projects, but continue to be open and explore opportunities to grow and expand the portfolio. I'll now hand over to Darren to provide further color and detail on our operational performance.
Thank you, Mike. With regards to our ESG initiatives, I'm glad to say that this year we actually saw a lessening of COVID issues in country, which actually now allowed us to get back to a little bit more face-to-face activity. We were able to actually engage again with our communities in the schools and through our CHAARAT games, which we hold on an annual basis in our Tulkubash project area. So that was a very nice step forward compared to where we had been in 2020 when everything was very much at a much more arm's length situation. With regards to Kapan, we've also spent significant time and effort this year actually working with the local community. One of the outcomes of the war between Armenia and Azerbaijan was a significant displacement of individuals, and Kapan region took in quite a few of those families and have been working to try and relocate them, find them new homesteads and animals to be able to create a new life. And that's been one of our initiatives that we've been working with the local community. So a significant number of activities, and as I say, very happy that we're able to start to be a little bit more face-to-face with individuals also. As Mike mentioned, unfortunately, in March of 2021, we did have a fatal incident. We also had one further lost time injury in the year at CHAARAT, one of our own employees who managed to have a very unfortunate fall, landed very difficult situation, and sustained fairly significant rib injuries. So that brought our total lost time injury frequency rate up to 0.61 for the year. Happy to say that it has been now 12 months since our last lost time injury, and things are progressing very nicely within the organization. One of the things that the fatality did do was really bring the organization together. We have been working on connecting our own workforce and all of the contractors that we use in all of our areas. Much more significantly, it's not culturally the way in many of the areas that we operate, many of the jurisdictions, but it is a fundamental of how we operate. And what this incident enabled us to do was really kickstart that process of being able to bring everybody together and think much more as a family and as a cohesive entity around keeping everybody safe and healthy. So that is probably one of the biggest areas that we've managed to improve upon in the last 12 months. Very, very significant step change. It's a tragic that it took such an event to be able to make that step change, but there's nothing worse than having a fatality and not really being able to make the real step change necessary. And I believe as an organization we are doing that, so that is good. We also continue our environmental stewardship. There have been no incidents of any nature actually in either CHAARAT or at our Talkabash operations. And as Mike mentioned, we have done significant work on improving the stability of our tailings dam in CHAARAT. A significant amount of material has been moved to stabilize that, what we're classifying as the buttressing of that material. And you can definitely see the benefits which are resulting from that. With regards to the CHAARAT operating performance, this year is probably the first year that we've been down on our mine tons. As Mike mentioned, this is a very deliberate strategy. We have modified our mining method in many parts of the mine now. Some of the veins do not lend themselves to mechanized mining at all. In that vertical plane, they are moving quite significantly. And if you just stick to mechanized mining, you're not getting the best value out of the operation. So we have changed that starting in 2021 to make better value from the operation. We've also seen in some of the areas that we've been operating a higher degree of oxidation and finer grain size, which has impacted us in the mill. So we've seen a slight reduction in ore recovery for the first time. Since we've owned the mine, we have had some good improvements in previous years, but this is a little bit of a step backwards. What we've realized is what's driving that, and we are now modifying our practices. So if we are mining in certain areas that we know have these particular attributes, that material is stockpiled, and we come back and we treat it in a particular way so that we can optimize the mill to be able to maximize the recovery of those areas. AISC has increased. So the inflationary pressures that we've been seeing, especially in the last 6 months of 2021 and into this year, especially oil and gas, anything related with those has gone up significantly in price. And obviously, we're seeing the same on many of our reagents and many of our consumables, such as mill balls, copper sulfate, zinc sulfate solutions. The positive is, obviously, the inflationary pressures which are driving that are also driving up the commodity prices. So we are seeing both the benefit and the slight negative as far as the costs are going. Significant amount of effort is going on at the operation to try and identify alternate suppliers, different transportation routes, different methods to be able to bring those costs under control. We certainly had good success in 19 and 20, and we're using those same options that worked well for us in those years to try and further reduce those costs as we go forward. With regards to East Flank, the work continues on East Flank. We have finalized the first first development drive there, or exploration drive. We're now in a position to be able to start that drilling work, and will take us approximately 2 years to be able to drill out the first section of East Flank, and I stress it's the first section of East Flank that we've targeted initially, bringing that up to a JORC compliant estimate. We know that the mineralization is there from historical mining, or it's historical drilling, but it's not to a JORC compliant level, and that's what we've got to do. If the opportunity presents itself, once we're into those initial areas and we're accessing all of this through the existing underground workings, if we find some areas which are very attractive and they are close to where we're currently operating, we will look to be able to take advantage of those over the next couple of years as well, rather than just doing the drilling and then move into them at a later date. With regards to Tulkabash construction, primary focus there has been making sure that we have all of the early activities done, so that once funding is in place, we can very quickly ramp up into the execution mode. So we have focused on engineering, camp construction, earthworks on the roads, and for the heap leach pad. So those have been the areas that we've focused on initially, and the pictures there show that quite nicely. We are seeing some of those inflationary pressures. We constantly look at what the costs of this project are going to be looking like. Obviously, as mentioned, oil has gone up significantly, potentially temporary, but we're looking at that, and also the other materials which will go into this project going forward. So just making sure that we're in a position as soon as financing is in place that we can ramp up very quickly. I think at this point we have a short video to be able to show some of the work that's been happening in Tulkabash. As well as the construction for 2021, we've also done further drilling, and we have focused on 3 areas in 2021. The first was infill drilling for our mid and east mineralized areas. We will be pulling together an updated resource and reserve for that, and that will be out later in Q2. And we also did exploration drilling around CHAARAT and Ishikuldi. So these are areas to the northeast, along strike of the existing Tulkabash body, looking for extensions to both oxides and sulfides. The initial results have shown some very positive intercepts, and more work will be done on that in the coming years to further the life of both Tulkabash and potentially of Kızıltaş as well. Kızıltaş, our focus there was on metallurgical test work. So we did 3,500 meters over 16 holes to get a representative sample of the material from the Kuzzltash deposit, both the open pit or the potential open pit area and also the underground. That core is now with SGS Lakefield in Canada, and they will be carrying out extensive metallurgical test work all the way through from flotation to POX, BIOX, Albion to help us identify the best and most likely technological routes to move forward with. And that will be the focus of our work over this year and into next, is actually looking at assessing the actual operating and capital costs of the various options and narrowing that down to the most likely one to go forward. With reserves, with regard to resources and reserves, we have done an update of Kapan resource. This is the first time that we have done a constrained resource. Historically, the last one we did was on an unconstrained basis. So here we've applied economic factors to actually look at what is the most appropriate sort of cutoff and effective resource there. Much more JORC compliant than was the case back in 2019. The standards have changed, so we've brought that back up to the appropriate level now. The constraining factors that we used, I would like to stress that they are on a conservative basis. We have used longer term metals pricing for that, and we also used our existing cost base for that. So we've taken sort of the worst of both worlds when actually pulling this together. So it's a very conservative result. You'll notice when you look through those numbers, it is different from what's there before, and the key reason is that constraining factor to make it a much more JORC compliant resource. So, as mentioned, we're also drilling the Kapan East Flank, and the first mineral resource estimate for that should be developed within 2023. We will look to potentially develop areas of that before bringing it up to a JORC compliant resource if it's appropriate to do so. But the mineral resource estimate for those first parts will be done by that time. And as I mentioned, by June of 2022, we should hopefully be releasing our resource and reserve for Torkabash update. Okay, thank you. And with that, I will hand over to David McKenzie.
Thanks, Darren. We had a very good year in 2021, as the figures show, against 2020. We also rotated our auditors off and now completed our first audit with Deloitte. The Kapan highlights were 63 kilo ounces of AU equivalent produced in 21 compared to 59k in 2020 due to strong third-party treatment. Kapan's EBITDA grew year on year. However, this was offset by an increase in AISC. The AISC has been hit by some inflationary pressures as discussed by Darren. However, the team is renewing its efforts with regards to finding mitigations to these new cost pressures. In the group highlights, we had a robust group financial performance in 21 versus 2020, with significant increases in both operating profit, 311% increase, and EBITDA plus 45%. One of the key things to note is we're continuing to reduce our debt levels in advance of Torkabash funding, with net debt decreasing by 49% during 21. So we now have a total of net debt of 39.5 million versus 77.52 last year. We also have a strong cash position with 11 million at the end of 2021 compared to 7 million in 2020. We've had a proactive management of our capital structure. In 2021, we had an equity raise of 52 million in February 21. We've had debt reduction from that, from 22.2 million debt to equity conversion of the Labro loan, and also had 9 million principal repayment of the Kapan loan. Just focusing on the Kapan loan balance was 19.3 million at the end of December 21. However, we've paid a further 3.1 million in Q1 22, and the balance is now 16.5. This acquisition loan is continuing to be repaid and will be down to about 11 million at the end of 22. This opens up potential to refinance Kapan as it is a stable producing asset. In terms of our net debt, we've got total debt of 50.6 million and we've had cash of 11.1. So therefore the net debt is now only 39.5, a 49% decrease. One item that we're looking to satisfy in a timely manner is the convertible bond that is due in October 22. This has a 30p strike price, and we're looking at either repaying in cash or refinancing. One of the key focuses in the first half of 22 is to finalise our Tulkabash project financing, which is in progress, and we hope to update the market shortly with that progress. And ongoing, CHAARAT continues to evaluate capital opportunities to either refinance existing finance facilities or reduce its overall cost of capital. So all in all, a very good year in 21, and we're looking forward to 22 with the increase in commodity prices. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Dave. So just moving on to closing before we get to the Q&A session. Firstly, I just want to make the point that certainly we believe CHAARAT is trading at a significant discount to the underlying value of the assets, and progressing our strategy, as we stated, and delivering of our key milestones will help us close that valuation gap. If you can just look on this slide, you can certainly see the brokers that do cover the stock see upside potential, as do we. The key milestones, that are important for us is obviously the continued development of the East Flank and the potential Kapaan life extension, Tulkabash financial close and resource and reserve growth, progressing Kiziltash, and then potential growth through M&A. And we certainly believe that this will enable the stock to re-rate and close the gap on that implied valuation. Just reiterating the key milestones for this year is firstly completing project financing and Tulkabash into full construction, and we're targeting that for the second half of 2022. Progressing the East Flank exploration drilling to enable first ore in 2023, if we decide to bring that ore into production. The decision around Kiziltash and the optimal processing route, having that in place so that we've got ready for that decision by Q1 of 2023 will enable us to meet our anticipated timelines on that project. And lastly, as Dave has spoken to, is to continue to reduce our debt position, potentially refinancing of current debt, and looking at ways of simplifying our balance sheet and reducing the cost of capital. And these are things that are key for us in our view to deliver on the strategy for CHAARAT in the near term. So with that, thank you for listening to our presentation. We now move on to the Q&A session, and I encourage everyone to
Mike,
post
David,
questions.
Darren, thank you very much indeed for your presentation this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions just using the Q&A tab that's situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. But just while the team take a few moments to review those questions submitted already, I would like to remind you that a recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboard. Mike, Darren, David, we did receive a number of pre-submitted questions from investors ahead of today's event, and if I may, I wanted to start off the Q&A session with these. The first one reads as follows. Do you plan to increase the gold production of Kapaan with the development of the East Flank, or would you keep it at 60,000 ounces but increase the life of mine?
For us is to firstly understand what that resource is, to drill that out and to enable us to assess the size of that reserve. Once we've done that, we will then undertake the trade-off study to determine whether we bring that into additional ore production and increased production, or we extend the life of the asset. And so it's probably too early for us to be explicit about that, but what we do know is that it will be value accretive because we believe it's a good resource. Darren, I'm not sure if you want to add anything to that.
No, that summed it up very nicely, Mike. It remains obviously something that we want to be able to develop and know exactly what is there. It's going to be of significant benefit going forward, but until we do that trade-off study, it's too early to be able to say which of the options we go for.
That's great. Thank you. Darren, perhaps a question for you here. Are you continuing the East Flank exploration? If yes, do you still plan to obtain first ore in 2022?
As I mentioned during the presentation, the decision on whether we get first ore in 2022 will very much depend upon some of those initial drill holes. We are accessing it from underground and doing all of our exploration development underground. So we have the workings and the infrastructure able to bring that ore out quite easily. So if we find some very interesting veins, which are very easy for us to be able to develop and bring online, yes, we will do that ahead of time. But it very much depends upon those initial drill results this year.
That's great. Thank you very much for that. The next question we have here reads as follows. Can you give a rough market cap or share price goal that you would like to see in 2027 once all three currently owned mines are in production?
Yeah, look, thanks for that question. I mean, I think it's an extremely difficult question to answer, to put a number out there. As we know, our sector is a lot of what share prices translates is into, production ounces, your cost of production, as well as your assumptions around gold price. And so, for investors and analysts doing their numbers, all that we can do is guide, as we have done, to what we think 2027 looks like, which is, potential production profile of 450 to 500,000 ounce gold equivalent at a all-in sustaining cost of below $900 per ton. And we believe that if we deliver on that, we will then be able to demonstrate a track record, close the discount that we believe exists to the assets, and then you can apply gold price whatever you believe it will be. We certainly of the view that the gold market over time is going to show upside potential, because there's very few quality projects coming on stream, and if we can deliver on the growth ambition, we believe that this is a stock that has got a lot of potential. But it's probably up to analysts to determine what that exact number looks like, depending on your assumptions and gold price.
Thank you very much for that. The next question we have that was pre-submitted relates to the share price and reads as follows. In the February 2021 presentation with a share price of 30p, the board expected an increase in share price. Why do you believe the opposite has happened since then?
Look, I think there's a number of things that have happened. If you firstly look at what's happening in Kyrgyzstan, the essential challenges that was in place with the Kumtor quasi-nationalization, if you can call it that, certainly it made it a bit more difficult for us to complete project financing for Tulkubash. I think the war in Ukraine has certainly meant that there's been a further widening of discounts at the lower end and the smaller stocks as people have moved to quality. And I think, therefore, there are some external factors, but there's a lot of things that are in our control. And as we demonstrated, we can continue to demonstrate credibility on delivering on our intentions. We believe that the stock will re-rate, the gap will be closed, and more confidence will come back into this part of the sector.
Thank you very much for that. The next question we have here reads as follows. The share price has slowly bled with white gold price has risen significantly. What will you do to return value for your patient long-term shareholders? I know that relates to the question you just addressed, but maybe a bit more color on that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. And again, I just come back and reiterate the same point, is that we do have quality projects in this portfolio. There's a quality team that is able to deliver on this. I also believe that the sector is open for further consolidation. And I think with the base that CHAARAT has, there's opportunity for further development of this business. I know that, many of the shareholders have been patient for some time. But again, all I can reiterate is that if we deliver on the intentions and the strategy that we have, and some of the pivots that we've spoken to, which will enable further growth in the portfolio, I do believe that shareholders will be rewarded. But we have to get those milestones delivered. We have to meet those commitments on the delivery, because that's ultimately how value will be unlocked, and how we will close the discount from the current share price to the underlying value of the assets.
Mike, thank you very much for that. Darren, David as well. We did receive a number of questions throughout today's presentation, which Patrick has kindly responded to, and thank you to all investors for submitting their questions. Ladies and gentlemen, the company will have the opportunity to review all of the questions submitted today, and we'll publish those responses on the Investor Meet Company platform, and you'll be notified by email when these are ready for your review. And Mike, perhaps before redirecting investors to provide you with their feedback, which I know is particularly important to yourself and the company, could I please just ask you for a few closing comments to wrap up with? And as I say, I'll then redirect investors to provide you with their feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. And to all of those that have listened to us today, I just want to thank you very much for joining us and to listening to our story. I do believe in CHAARAT. I believe that we've got a capable team that is able to take on the opportunities and challenges that are in front of us. And I'm excited to be part of this journey, and I look forward to you being part of this journey with us as we close the valuation gap and unlock value for all of our stakeholders. So thank you very much for listening to us, and hopefully we will speak to you all in due course. So thank you and stay safe.
That's great. Mike, Darren, David, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to update investors this morning. Could I please ask investors not to close this session, as you'll now be automatically redirected for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order that the management team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, and I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of CHAARAT Gold Holdings Limited, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation. That now concludes today's session, so good morning to you all.